distributees are labeled under a statute, EPTL 4-1.1, gives an order of who receives if you do not have a will. So if you have a spouse and children, your spouse receives the first $50,000 and then the rest is split between the spouse and the children. This gets very sticky when it's young children involved because then they are entitled to a little bit of the assets, and then you have to set up guardianships, and it can make it a lot more complicated where whereas if you have a will, you can say that you want everything to go to your spouse instead of just going directly to the spouse and children. And this really cleans a lot of the mess up. And that's usually what people want. Most people want their assets to go directly to their spouse. They don't realize that, if there is no will, that the children do have a stake in the game, even if they are underage and even if they are very young. If there are no children, it goes to the spouse directly, 100% to your spouse. If there's no spouse or no children, or sorry, if there's no spouse, it goes directly to the children, split equally. And it gets a little fuzzy with, if children have passed away already. So there's a lot more involved if that has happened. But no children, then it goes to the parents of the person that passed away. No parents, pretty much your siblings. And then it keeps kind of going down the chain, and it really goes out pretty extensively into cousins after this. I know a lot of people's first gut instinct is if I don't have a will, that it goes directly to the state, but that's not directly true if you don't have really a next of kin. And you've gone through all of these lineages and all these lines, then it can go to the state. There is a provision for that, but it takes a lot for it to get to that point. But really, if you want to make sure that your assets go to who you want them to, a will is your best bet, or beneficiaries on those accounts really do streamline everything. Now, when you do make a will, those that would receive, had there not been a will, do get notice of the proceedings. So they do. So let's say you're leaving everything to your spouse and you have adult children. Those adult children do get notice of the proceedings and do have to sign off on the will. And all that means is they don't have any objections to it. Because they could come to court saying that the will was fraudulently signed. They could come in and say that there was undue duress, that the spouse forced them to sign it. This happens a lot when you have blended families and children from a previous marriage. So that's when those types of issues come up. Although, a lot of people that have, your husband and wife and your two children, you don't think about it that way. That's where it really comes into play, is when you have two families that merge and step siblings. That's really when you see that in the courtroom of children saying that the will is invalid or trying to argue it. So those are some of the issues that will come up even if you do have a will. Although I do try when I make the wills to address any issues that could potentially come up. I do have people that will write a child out. You cannot by law write your spouse out. They do have a right of election to the estate. They don't have a right to all of it, but that's a little too much into the weeds. But if you do write a child out, when I do my wills, I still mention them and say that they've been specifically written out of the will, just so they can't come to court and try to have the will thrown out saying that mom or dad wasn't in their right mind. They just forgot about me. That has come up. That has been an argument I've seen in the courtroom. So I do try to go through those kind of specifics when I put together my wills, so that we can try to eliminate as many issues that can come up after passing that as possible.